Call to order for Watertown City Council meeting for May 15th of 2023. Please rise while Councilman Vilhauer leads us in prayer.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we gather today, a beautiful, beautiful day, and our hearts are full of gratitude for what you have given us and for this community. And we also have a special thought in our minds this week as we thank those that put their life on the line every day when they go to work, as we celebrate Police Week this week. And also, please keep the family of Councilman Dan Schutte in your comfort and care as they deal with the loss of his father. Now we ask you give us wisdom to make decisions that are pleasing to you. And all God's people said, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Manager Mack, please call the roll.
Bueller?
Here.
Danforth?
Here.
Pauline?
Here.
Polson? Here. Schutte?
Here.
Tupper? Here. Vilhauer?
Here.
Quorum is established. The chair will entertain a motion before anyone says anything. For the consent agenda, I am going to pull at the request of two councilmen. Item D. I'm going to pull that and we'll put it at the end of the regular agenda. So the motion is to approve the consent agenda minus D. Motion made by Tupper, seconded by Schutte. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Now is the time for public comments. If anyone is here who would like to address the council on something that is not on tonight's agenda, now is your time to do so. I don't see anyone coming forward. I will close public comments and open it up for tonight's agenda. Just a little addendum. I'm not going to put it on the agenda, but we are going to have an item A2, which is Troy Van Dusen for the 911 Center. But that'll just be a special presentation. So with that, the chair will entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Motion made by Councilman Vilhauer, seconded by Councilman Bueller. Any comment on that? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item A is a construction progress update for the new Prairie Lakes Ice Arena, project number 2116. City Manager Mack, please lead us off.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Tonight we have with us in person Mike Van Cly, and on Teams we have Dick Strasberg, who are with the Tegra Group. They are owner's rep on the Ice Arena project. We asked them to come and just give us a general update on where we're at with the project, how things are looking, what's left to be done. And Mike and Dick will both be available for questions during and after the presentation. So we thank them for being a partner in this and for making the drive over.
I'll just provide some context on the structure of how we're managing this project, if I could, before we kick it off to Mike. So internally with the city staff, Justin Peterson, the assistant city engineer, and myself have been partnering on the project manager duties. That includes, reviewing pay applications from the contractor after they've gone through our owner's rep for their review, looking at potential change orders, coordinating lead times and potential issues with scheduling, and attending all the construction progress meetings that happen out on site with the CMAR, who's RJM, and all their subcontractors. And then that coordination also occurs at the operational level with Dusty Roddick, the Park and Rec Director, and then Scott Glow, the manager of the new ice arena. They stay in tune every step of the way as we're deciding on things, as the building's being constructed, and we look at any potential change orders that might impact the operations. They're definitely brought into the loop on those kind of decisions, and we work closely with them from an operational standpoint. So with all that being said, of course, we entered into a contract with the Tegra Group, who are professionals that specialize in being owners' representatives on projects like this. It's been a great opportunity to have them on board with us. I think I haven't written it down solidly in numbers on a spreadsheet, but I think they've more than earned their pay in this project, given the complexities and the amount of information that's being processed each and every week. all the way back from when this was in a concept prelim design phase, all the way through the design, and then now all as we've gotten through the construction. They've just little things that they're able to point out from that owner's rep viewpoint that has really helped us with a lot of things, some costly, some less costly, but all beneficial along the way. So with that, I'll hand it over to Mike, and he can get into some of the details about the progress that we're making. With one exception, I'll quick refer to our building official, Reed Peterson. He's also been on site on a weekly basis, making building permit inspections from that standpoint as well, making sure that they're progressing according to our building codes and the permit that was issued. With that, thank you, Mike, for being here tonight.
Yep, absolutely. So, Mike Van Cly, Tegra Group. I've met quite a few of you in person. I know Dick's been here quite a bit as well, so he's online. As Amanda said, we're both available for questions either as we're going through or afterwards. Just to, Heath, thank you. Appreciate kind of your nice comments. We would echo and agree that the team that was put together has been really great to work with, and that's kind of all around. So. And with that, I guess we'll just kind of jump in here. So we're going to touch on construction schedule, the project budget, the owner-furnished items, which are independent contracts direct with the city, what we decided to call enhancements, which are, I will say, originally we were doing value engineering to make sure we were in budget. We've had some opportunities to, say, add some stuff back in within the budget that we have. And then we've got some progress photos / weekly update that we get from the construction management partner. So just to start with, construction did start October of 2022, and we are still anticipating occupancy in December of 2023. Now, a few of the things that helped us to maintain that, if some of you might remember, we did go into some early bid packages, which we needed a special approval for. The roofing was really key. Precast was another one, and just getting those people on board early has allowed us to maintain that schedule and have that stuff. So that was a win all the way around. We did come into a little bit of a hiccup with some electrical equipment, and I only bring that up because the solution was amazing and speaks to the team that we put together. The electrician on site with the construction manager, we were actually able to find a solution out of Omaha. It was a custom piece of gear. The project was able to absorb it, and we were able to maintain schedule. So, just speaks to that teamwork again. And then, although winter was not our friend, everybody here lived through it. RJM and Crestone are working really hard and feel like they have a really solid plan to maintain that December occupancy date. So schedule is going really well, despite some extra work that has had to go in. So from the budget perspective, just in round numbers, the project budget was $36.4 million. The punchline is everything is tracking as we would expect. The soft costs of 3.6, which I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on the next page. That's a lot of the owner direct purchased items outside of the construction contract. The construction contract is still holding at 32. We are 30% complete with billings / the project at this point. And we're starting to have conversations with RJM right now about if there's savings opportunities and ways to roll that money back into the project. So that's a really good point to be at because we've passed some really critical milestones. We're out of the ground, more or less. Our structural steel is on site. All of kind of these big components that can be really tricky went well and continue to go well. And now as we get the building enclosed, we're really able to control a lot of those environmental factors. So again, construction is tracking well. The owner contingency amount, that's about what we started with, and the burn rate is less than the percentage of work that's been done. So again, that's tracking where we want it to be. So there's an opportunity now to talk about some of those items that we backed out of the project originally to make sure that we could be at a budget that people were comfortable with. So owner furnished items, direct contracts, the Zamboni contract, we've purchased that. That's set for delivery in December. Continue to work with Scott on operational equipment. We've identified it. These are things like skate sharpeners, rental skates, floor scrubbers, those types of items. All of that's tracking well, both in budget and time-wise. The furniture the selections have been finalized. We anticipate getting approval this week to put the order in for the furniture. Again, that's tracking just slightly below budget right now as well, so that's in a good spot. Kitchen equipment is a joint effort. Scott and Connie, who's also with Tegra, are working on both new versus what can be relocated equipment. Again, budget-wise, we're tracking well. Schedule-wise, we're tracking well. And I would say 2 to 3 weeks from now, we'll know what we're going to reuse and what we should purchase new. Your IT staff has been great to work with. We've got all the major IT components on order and the low voltage system, so like security systems, server racks, cabling, all the above. That again that's actually been a big hurdle on some of our projects recently. That everybody hears about the chips that are on back order. So all of that stuff is in a good spot and is coming. And then the scoreboards, the commitment from the city is to provide the end-mounted scoreboards. And so we've determined that we need to order those by late June, early July. Those will be here in time as well. We've got them picked out. We've got a cost figured out. And then your fundraising committee is working hard to see if there's a way to get that center hung in on day one. Right now, that's not part of the plan, but there's been accommodations made within the building so that center hung could be put in at any point in time. Okay, so the enhancements. So this is kind of some of the items that we've added into the building, again, all within the budget. So we are going to put a passive radon mitigation system is going in. That's one of the, I'll say, risks that you can't measure in a building until the building is up. So it's a complicated on whether or not to do it. So we looked at the environmental factors that are out there and the knowledge of the area and said radon is a risk. So we worked through to figure out, how to add a passive system that could be enhanced in the future. There are suites on your main rink for fundraising, or people could. There's a lot of different ideas about how they're going to work. There's a plan out there to add some suites in the future, so we made some accommodations so that could happen relatively easily. The junior shell and the varsity locker room, we've made accommodations within the structure so that, again, those could be added on in the future when and if it's determined that those are desired. We're going to reuse the existing varsity lockers. That was something that originally was not anticipated, but we worked out a good plan to make that happen, and that looks like that's really going to be a good win for the building. And then we're just starting right now to work with Prairie Lakes on the signage component and understanding exactly what that's going to look like and be. So those are kind of some, I'll say, enhancements from the base drawings that have either been implemented or we're working through right now. So this, just to kind of show you some status updates, every Friday we get an update from the RJM and Crestone team. 10 slides maybe with kind of some photos to document where things are at, and so I just thought these would be a good example to kind of show everybody where it is. So this is Rink 1. You can see that the interior precast and the stadia has been more or less installed. The roof structure hasn't gone on yet, and that will be following here shortly. Just a little piece showing kind of underneath the stadia and the backfilling that's taken place. So these are the trusses for Rink 1. They come in 2 pieces. They get bolted together on site. I drove by there on my way in today. They've got 2 of the trusses set, and so now this week they'll continue to work across Rink 1 to get these roof trusses installed. This is the lobby office area. So they've got the metal roof decking on that right now. Again, just another shot of the lobby and the office area, and they're starting to put some of the framing up out front, so you can see that. Rink 2 was the rink that I'll say, started on first due to sequencing and crane movements and what have you. You can see all of the trusses are on up there. The roof decking is on, and then also you'll see in a future picture that the roofing is actually done for Rink 2. So because of where Rink 2 is at, they're now starting to build the elevator shaft. They're starting to run plumbing, electrical, all of those types of things. This kind of goes back to we can now control the environment inside Rink 2. And then here is the roof of Rink 2. So it's watertight right now, which when people say it's dried in, that's kind of a big milestone we're celebrating in the construction world. And that's where we're at. Rink 1, we would anticipate about 2 weeks from now being able to start roofing on Rink 1. And that is kind of the punchline of what we put together. Wanted to keep it high level. Hopefully it was information that's interesting. And we'd open it up to any questions, comments right now.
All right, I will do so now. Council, any questions? Councilman Schutte?
Thank you for your work and your presentation on this. It sounds like it has been going very well. And I just have a question on the trusses, the metal. They're pre-primed, I would assume, from a factory. In construction world, can those sometimes sit and get covered with snow, or and have issues with the primer because they can't handle certain environments? I guess I was curious how that process played out. Were they kind of delivered at the time they were going to be used, or?
So it's interesting that you asked that question. To combat against that, they were actually tested by a third-party testing company at the manufacturer before they were shipped here to make sure that the primer had cured enough in order so that they could be outside in the elements prior to being installed.
Okay, good, because sometimes that sounds like, oh, what's the big deal? But that could be a major issue down the road.
Yep.
So, all right, appreciate that.
Councilman Danforth.
Mayor, if I may, I got probably 2 or 3 just curiosity questions. Mike, you referenced one of the enhancements was the area for a future junior hockey team. Mm-hmm. Is that the shell is in place, or is it just able to have the shell put on?
So for the juniors space, we went ahead and we made accommodations to the precast wall panels of the rink so that there's connection points for the roof structure of the juniors shell in the future. And then we also will be putting the footings in and stubbing the utilities into the space so that at the time that you wanted to move ahead with either the junior shell or the full juniors build out, it would really be, I'll say, in addition to the building that wouldn't disrupt building operations. We also put the door in. That was kind of a conversation. Maybe just to add on to that a little bit, that's slightly different than the accommodations that were made for the varsity locker area, because that we understand to be further down the road. And so for the varsity locker area, we prepped the precast wall panels so that you could cut out the doors in the future without causing issue with the reinforcing. And we also put the roof connection plates behind one layer of concrete. So they're not exposed to the elements right now, but it's much easier than not having a connection plate. So we took 2 slightly different approaches based on timing that we thought seemed reasonable.
Okay, thank you. A couple different times it was mentioned that we're within budget, but there are some opportunities that might bring some of our costs down, which would enable us to put things added back into the project. And my question on that is how does that work? Does that just happen automatically within the construction part of this, or do those items come back to the council for approval? How does that work, not knowing what those things are and what kind of dollars we're talking about? How does that work?
Well, I can provide just a little bit of context to that. So you all did approve change orders up to $75,000 to be approved by the manager. So those items that would get brought back in that are under that threshold, if we deem that it's appropriate and makes sense, I can sign off on that. Any changes to the timeline and anything above $75,000 comes to the council.
And then I'll add to that from our perspective, from the construction team perspective, any of those ideas that we might be looking into, we put together budgets, either high level or detailed, depending on the status of where we're at, present them to Heath, Justin, Amanda, and team, go through the details. Is this something that you're interested in? Yes or no? And then from there we move forward or decline.
The only reason why I bring that up, Mayor, is obviously we have other projects that we are working on and trying to figure out how we're going to fund those. So not knowing what was being referenced there and what those dollar amounts were, certainly an area that is a concern, at least knowing how those funds would be allocated or placed into that project. The last question I have is in regards, Mike, you mentioned the center hung scoreboard. And if the dollars can be raised, I'm assuming that's primarily from the same group that raised funds initially. So would these be additional funds from what was committed to, or would that center hung be from those funds?
Center hung would be additional.
Okay.
So the center hung and the junior team shell is above and beyond what was committed to pay off the bond.
And Councilman, I would also add, if you allow me, because I've been on all of the Build It Now meetings, and that's the fundraising group. We've made it clear that things like the center hung scoreboard are in addition and do not count against the obligation that they made to raise the $10 million. This is above and beyond. They know that they're selling it as such. I'm waiting to, Councilman Danforth, are you done?
Yeah.
Okay, Councilman Beeler?
He's done already? All right. Question for you, Mike, if you would. I'm curious, did you run into any inferior materials issues throughout this process, or quality issues or construction problems as you guys have worked through this project? Have you caught some of those things in the...
There was some conversation early on, working through the cold winter and just making sure that some of the footings got blanketed and some things like that. But when they came up, we worked with RJM and Crestone, and they put together kind of an extra level of quality control to make sure that they weren't going to be an issue. And then there's a third-party inspector that we had come out and do a little bit of extra testing just to make sure that some concrete didn't freeze and some things like that, and all those tests came back on the up and up.
One other quick question, Mike. How often do you have somebody come on site?
Us, Tegra?
Yeah. Yep, Tegra.
We're here at least we're planned to be here at least every other week. There were a couple times during the winter when it stretched out to 3 weeks or 4 weeks because of the weather.
Can see that. Thank you.
Yep.
Councilman Vilhauer?
Thank you, Mayor. So, Mike, I know early on, and before we even broke ground out there, before we even committed to that site out there, there was concerns about the site itself as far as the ground itself. Any comments along those lines? We're past that apparently, but I guess I would appreciate a comment along those lines.
Sure. So, yes, right, there were concerns. Nobody hid from that at all. There were, I would say, not more than you would anticipate. There were a couple of areas that were of concern. J&J Excavating, who was both the earthworker on the site and also developed the site, they re-corrected, is what I guess you would say, in any areas that were questionable. So they were taken care of immediately if there was anything found. And I only say that because if we did 50 tests, 48 of them came back with no issue, right? It was that, there weren't a lot of them, and they were dealt with quickly, and so the site is holding up as anticipated.
Thanks, Mike.
And I would actually add this. So the critical piece we're coming into next is really going to be the ice rinks. And so just to reassure everybody and make sure that everything's good, actually as a team decided to do some additional investigations under the 2 ice rinks, and those also came back as good to go.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mike.
Any further questions, Council? Thank you, Mike. Thank you for being here, and thank you to Tegra for representing us in this large project.
Absolutely.
Dick, thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, item A2, for lack of a better terminology, is going to be kicked off by Councilman Randy Tupper.
I'm going to ask our 911 operations director to step up, Troy Van Duzen, as being their liaison for the 911 board. About a month ago, I think was the last time we met. Troy had a presentation on a new, what'd you call it again, Troy? It's got a word.
It's called Prepared Live.
Yeah, it's called Prepared Live. It's a text type situation. I thought it was very, very interesting. So with the mayor and the city manager's permission, I asked Troy to come up tonight and give us a little presentation. He's going to use me as a dummy like he did that day, but not really a dummy, but it's really impressive what the police department has taken on, and just to show you that we're on the cutting edge of technology all the time, and people of Watertown need to appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Tupper. Mr. Mayor, thank you for having me here. City Manager Mack, members of the council, Troy Van Dusen on behalf of the Watertown 911 Center. Glad to give you this presentation, brief presentation. I'll try and keep it short, but I just wanted, like Councilman Tupper said, to show you some of the technology that we're using in our 911 center now. We're very pleased to bring this to you this evening. Just a little bit about our 911 center. And I'm sure most of you know we dispatch for 6 counties. Those counties include Coddington, Clark, Grant, Dual, Day, and Hamlin counties, and I apologize for those, for that information. Let me just minimize this here real quick here so we don't get that dinging noise. Let's see. Okay. So we cover an area, territory, which is 40 miles north, and that goes up to about 1 mile south of Langford, South Dakota, to about 5 miles south of Lake Norden. So from north to south, we have a good territory that we cover. And then 42 miles east to west from the Spink County line all the way over to Minnesota. So we cover about 63,000 residents that live in that area, and so we do have a big area. And so far this year, our 911 center has answered just about 22,000 non-emergency and administrative phone calls that have come into the center since January 1st. 5,387 911 calls we've taken so far. And in case you're wondering, 584 of those calls were abandoned 911 calls where people accidentally bump their phone and we have to spend time calling them back. So we ask people to stay on the line if you accidentally bump your phone and talk to our dispatcher so that we can clear out that call. But Prepared Live is a good program to clear out some of those incidents, and I'm going to talk to you about that. But our average call is, our average 911 length of our average 911 call is about 3 to 4 minutes. And 98% of those calls are answered within 10 seconds, which I'm very proud of our staff. We have a staff of 12 full-time dispatchers and myself in the communications center, and they do a fantastic job and taking those calls. Back in September of 2022, Chief Toomey came to me, and he had attended a conference, and he approached me with the idea that he had seen a program out there where Axon body cameras, the body cameras that the officers wear, integrates with a program that we use in our center called Rapid SOS. And this is Rapid SOS. And what this program does is it actually monitors calls that are coming into our center. Right down here on the map, well, first of all, let me just back out. The area that's in red there, that is our dispatch territory. So if you back out, you can see, if you compare that to the state of South Dakota, you can see the size that we cover. It's a pretty impressive territory that we cover. But one of the programs that Chief Toomey wanted me to look into was the integration with this map into the officers' body cameras. So I started doing some research on that, and I found that we could integrate the body cameras into Rapid SOS. It was just a matter of contacting the company, and that was relatively new software. It hadn't been pushed out to a lot of different departments yet, but they pushed it out to us, and so we were able to upload that into our Rapid SOS. And now we're able to see exactly where the officers are at on the map using their body cameras and not just the GPS telling us where their cars are at. So if they get into a foot chase or a foot pursuit or a fight or something like that and they can't get to their radio, we still have the ability to see exactly the location on their of their body camera, and so that's really handy for us. So as we started to research the Axon integration with Rapid SOS, I got to talking to the company, and I said, do you have any other products out there that we would be interested in? And one of the programs that they had that was in a beta version was this program in front of you called Prepared Live. Prepared Live is live stream video conferencing between our dispatch center and somebody that calls in on 911. They don't have to call in on 911. If it's an abandoned 911 call or something similar to that, we do have the capability of contacting them direct, but it's video, not just the phone, not just a phone call. So we can actually see exactly what's going on at the scene. So if you're involved in a domestic type situation, or perhaps you're at a scene of a car crash or a house fire or something that you just can't perhaps verbalize what's going on, we can send you a text message, and we can establish a video link with you to where you don't even have to talk. All you have to do is hold your phone up, and we can see exactly what's going on. The good news is that everything that's in front of you right now doesn't cost the city of Watertown anything. It's free. And so we have this software, and we are currently utilizing it. So far, since September of 2022, we've utilized this software 957 times. And so it's coming in very, very handy for us. And most of the time we're using it on 911 hang-up calls to establish contact. If somebody sees our dispatch center call back and it's a call from the police department, believe it or not, sometimes they won't answer that call, but they will generally always answer a text message. And so I thought today what I would do real quick for you is so you can see how this works, and I've had this conversation with Randy, is I would like to call Randy's cell number here. I don't know, Randy, do you mind if I put that up on the board? Is
Yeah,
that okay?
that's fine.
Okay. I just thought about that. Everybody's going to see what your number is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put his number in here along with his name. And over here on the left is a prefabricated message that I put in there that says go live with Watertown Regional 911 Center by clicking this link. So I'm going to go ahead and create that incident. And what that's going to do is that's going to start a call for me. And Randy's going to get a text message on his phone that says that I am requesting to go live with Randy right now. And as soon as he accepts that, you'll see the system go to work here. And here it comes. Chat started with the caller. And you have to click play, I think, Randy, on your phone there. Okay. And here comes the video, live stream video from Randy's phone. Now, we can but what's good about that is I can take a snapshot of what I'm seeing on the phone. I can engage Randy in discussion, but if it's a situation where we want to record video evidence to attach to our cases, but the dispatcher probably don't want to see it, we have the ability to blur that image if it's too graphic. So the dispatching staff can blur that, but the actual image itself is not blurred. Okay, so when it saves to the server, it is not blurred. We can chat. I can take a picture of Randy, but I can also flip the camera around to where I can see what's going on either camera. Okay, flip it back. So we'll flip it back. Okay. Now, Randy, I'm going to request your location.
Would you please blur that image?
Yeah. So, Randy, I just sent you another link requesting your location. Now, we got that initially when you dialed 911, but that's when he approves that, that's going to put us right down here. It's going to tell us exactly where we're at within 5 to 10 feet of where he's at. And that's right here in the City Hall building. And so pretty neat. It's pretty neat software. So, Randy, I'm going to go ahead and stop this call with you right now.
Okay.
And what that will do is I'm going to go up here and resolve this incident. And we're going to do this training and resolve. And then what that's going to do is that's going to close out that incident. Now I can go back into the archive and I can pull up that incident and I can download all the information about that call. I can look at that call and I can get into the details of that call where it will tell me his exact coordinates. About every 2 seconds it updates his position. So if he's walking, it marks it, it stamps it, and we're able to attach all this information to a case report in our Central Square CAD system. So phenomenal technology. Our dispatchers are using it. They absolutely love it. I just want the public to know that it's out there and that we do have that ability. So if you're involved in a situation where things are getting heated and you cannot talk, or if you're in a motor vehicle crash or an accident and you cannot speak, we still have capability of establishing contact. So very proud of this, and I'm proud of our staff, our dispatching staff. They really embrace this, and they love it, and I love them. They're doing great. So
Trey, can you share the story on the high-speed chase?
Yeah, I sure can. So when we first implemented this back in September, it was October or November, we had a deputy up in one of our counties that we dispatch up north, I believe it was Grant County, that tried to stop a vehicle. And during that traffic stop, it escalated. It got physical with the deputy, and the driver attempted to run the deputy over. And so a pursuit was initiated. The Highway Patrol was involved in that, along with the deputy. And it was coming towards Watertown, southbound on I-29 at a pretty good clip. We had information in the dispatch center that there was a female in the vehicle, and through our records we were able to determine who the female was. Using her contact information that we had in our CAD system, we were able to use Prepared Live to send a link to her phone asking if she was in the vehicle, a text message, and she responded that she was in the vehicle. Our dispatcher then sent a link to start a video with her, and she was able to hold up her phone during this pursuit, and we were able to see who the driver of the vehicle was. More importantly, in that call was the fact that we discovered that there was a child that was also in the vehicle. So I'm gonna close that out. That sound means that there's a 911 call coming in. Okay, so but there was a child that was also in the vehicle with her, and so that changed how officers terminated that pursuit, which was key in that. We've also had house fires that we've been able to record live video from. We had another incident, and I believe I have some pictures here if you give me just a second. We had an incident where a brother and a sister got into an argument, and the sister ran back. The parents weren't home, but the sister ran back into the bathroom and locked herself in the bathroom. The brother had grabbed a hammer and was coming after the sister, but the sister was able to lock the bathroom door. And the brother, who was very upset and very angry, was using the claw end of the hammer to try and pound his way through the door to get to the sister. And we're live streaming this in our 911 center, and our dispatchers talking to the caller, the girl, while live streaming and providing updates to law enforcement while they're en route. And so that's where the claw was coming through the door on the video, and so we were able to see exactly what was going on there. Yeah, it's a great program. It's free, which is good, but I just wanted you to all know about the great things that we're doing in our 911 center. There's more and more enhancements that are happening every day as technology advances, and I look for us to be on the leading edge of that. In fact, we were one of the first departments in the state to have Prepared Live, and there's not too many others that have it yet. So we got onto it right after it was released from the beta version. So we're staying on top of that. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
And we will open it up for that right now. Councilman Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. First and foremost, thank you, Troy, and all of our 911 operators and our police department, obviously. Appreciate all that you do for this community. What is the success rate on getting people to respond, even via text message? I know you probably send these out.
Yeah, I mean, it really does vary, Councilman Paulson. I mean, it varies. Sometimes they will respond, sometimes they don't. Whenever we have a 911 abandoned call, even if they do respond to our text messaging, we still send an officer to the scene just to make sure that everything is good and double check that. But yeah, I can't give you a percentage because I don't know, but I can tell you that depends on the day, it seems like. But yeah.
Councilman Schutte.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank the chief for his response time, and when it was presented to you for this, and then bringing it to Mr. Van Duzen, and then working together and just expediting it, not just expediting it, not just looking at it as, oh, that's cool, we'll do it someday, but literally taking advantage of this and for the better of the community. So thank you.
One thing our department is really good about is staying on top of the technology, and we appreciate the council's support staying on top of that. It helps keep us going in the right direction, so we appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilman Villauer.
Thank you, Mayor. Very impressive, Troy. Just a question. Does this work with all cell phone providers?
It does.
It does, okay.
Yep, it does.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Any further questions, council? On behalf of the entire council and the city of Watertown and the community surrounding us, we thank you for the work that you do and the 911 team does. As I've said many times, the number one quality of life issue is public safety, and for that we always owe our police department and our fire department to start off with, and there's a lot of other people too, but thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Troy.
Thank you.
All right. With that said, we'll move on to item B, an application for a special event malt beverage retailer's license and special event retail wine license to Watertown Area Chamber of Commerce for the Wine and Beer Walk on June 1st of this year. City Manager Mack, tell us more.
Thank you, Mayor. What you have before you is, as you said, an application for a special event malt beverage retailer's license and special event retail wine license for the wine walk to be on June 1st, 2023. A fee of $340 has been paid and proof of insurance has been provided for this special event. The notice of hearing was published on May 6th, and staff would recommend approval.
Thank you very much. I will open it up for a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify on this item? I'll close the public hearing, open it up for council action. Do I have a motion to approve the application? Motion made by Councilman Bueller, seconded by Councilman Tupper. Let's open it up for council questions and comments. Councilman Schutte.
Yeah, actually, on a personal note, I was just wondering if there's a way to, layman's terms, put a parentheses instead of behind the description. I'm reading it today, and it's, okay, 1 East Kemp Avenue, lots 18 to 20, and 20 to 21, and north 18 feet east. I'm like, where is that? So I was just wondering if there's a way to, I know you got to do that on these documents, but is there a way to sometimes put, like, I don't know.
The street, it overlays Watertown.
It's not quite in
yeah.
front of Access Ministries, if that's what you're
Right.
wondering.
No, I was.
Yeah. No, this would be from Maple to 2nd along Kemp, I believe. Maybe it's Broadway. Someone can pull it up. Sorry.
It's actually, Councilman, it's actually not a bad question for those following along at home in the public, or people like myself who might be address numerically challenged.
On a bright note, in some of our research on liquor, we have found other applications in other communities where they do just put the street, we're closing Broadway or from this block to this block on Broadway. So we probably are able to clean that up a little bit and make it a little easier to understand.
Councilman Danforth?
I should know this because I've been to this thing a number of times, but does this enable people to be walking up and down the street with their wine or whatever? Or is that supposed to be consumed within the...
It is supposed to be consumed at the place that you receive your beverage at. I'm not going to say that publicly, Bruce. So we do tend to police that with a little bit of grace and recognize that part of the event is traveling from place to place. But technically, you're supposed to stay at the place that you get the drink at.
Okay.
Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the application. All those in favor will please say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion carries. Item C is a retail malt beverage and South Dakota Farm wine license renewal for Dakota Butcher. City Manager Mack, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. A public hearing is required because of a violation for Dakota Butcher with an underage alcohol purchase on June 15th. This license holder did appear before the council for the renewal of their retail wine and cider license in regards to this violation. Fees have been paid and the notice of public hearing has been published on May 6th, and we would recommend approval.
Thank you very much. I will open up a public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to testify on this item? Seeing no one come forward, I'll close the public hearing, open it up for council action. Do I have a motion to approve the license? Motion made by Councilman Villauer, second by Councilman Paulson. Open it up for questions and or comments. Hearing none, the motion is to approve the license renewal. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item D is an approval of Resolution of Necessity 23-16 for the assessment of the 16th Avenue Northwest infrastructure improvements to be installed with Project 2304. We'll go to our Public Works Director, Heath Von Eye, to explain this one.
Thank you, Mayor. This is in preparation for one of our planned roadway improvement projects this year. This resolution of necessity is the first step in any formal assessment of public improvements to the adjacent property owners. City engineering staff of Public Works Department have been working for quite some time now with the adjacent landowners for this particular stretch of roadway. This is on 16th Avenue North. I think most are very familiar with the fact that we've got a half-street section built for a good couple of blocks here. This is 2nd Street West on this map on the west side of this drawing that of course leads north up from 14th Avenue on up to some of the newer subdivisions with Valley View that's being constructed presently off there to the northwest. And then if you go east on 16th, of course, we have the elementary school, and further east are the new apartment complexes being built along Highway 81. With all the development occurring around this area, the expansion of this roadway simply hasn't caught up with that development in terms of the immediately adjacent land that's still being used for agricultural purposes. And so the city and the engineering staff have taken upon ourselves to put this as a priority, just given the amount of traffic and the development all around it, to initiate an assessment of public improvements for the north half of 16th Avenue to be constructed, along with the assessed improvements would include, of course, the roadway, the subgrade prep, the base course, the asphalt, and then also the curb and gutter and sidewalk sections to complete that portion of the road. With that, there's a few things that we had to do to accomplish this that are still in the works. One of them is platting and dedicating right-of-way for this north half of the street. When the south half was developed some years back, of course that was annexed and zoned and developed accordingly to our development regulations. The north half now, in order for the city to implement and build and have the right to build improvements in this area, we of course need the appropriate right-of-way or platted H lot that we're working through with the landowners to the north. We've also gone to the extent of putting together the design for these improvements. Those design costs can be assessed to the developer. In this case, since we did the design in-house, we are not anticipating assessing, excuse me, I said the term developer, I meant landowner. We are not anticipating developing our design costs to the landowner, but only the construction costs. We've recently been in communications with them, and Russ Putnam is actually online with us here tonight. He's one of the many landowners, as this land is in a trust, and to my understanding there are multiple landowners to the north. They've been very amicable to work with. There was a little bit of miscommunication along the way as far as the intent of the project and the full cost and their responsibility of it, but we had a good productive meeting last week. I felt that we were able to talk through some of those details, explain the assessment project in greater detail, and work with them in a very amicable way. With that, the total cost that we anticipate assessing, and again this is preliminary until construction is finalized, was to the tune of $240 some odd thousand. It amounted to $332 a linear foot of frontage. As a council, most of you, I'm sure, are aware that our assessments are typically based on a per front footage of adjacency to the public improvements, and that's exactly what we're doing here. We've taken the cost for that north half of the roadway and compiled those costs. We've shared those estimates with the landowners to the north. And following state statute, the resolution of necessity is step one to formalize the memorializing of this assessment. With that, I'll pause for any questions or comments and yield to you, Mayor, to call on Mr. Putnam for any comments or questions they might have during the public hearing.
Thank you very much, Director. I will open up a public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to this? Mr. Putnam, would you like to speak?
Yep, thank you very much. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, you're loud and clear.
Great. Awesome. My name is Russell Putnam. I'm one of the landowners for the abutting property at issue for the proposed resolution of necessity. I want to thank you guys for the invite and your consideration. Me and one of my fellow landowners, a family member, did speak with Heath, Lisa, Justin, and Craig the other day, and they were very helpful in providing us information and follow-up questions we had regarding the project, so we wanted to thank them too. We did have a couple questions in talking with our landowners after the meeting that we were hoping the city could just address quickly. 4 questions specifically. I can go through one by one or just give you all 4, however works for you. I think the first question we had is we wanted just confirmation from the city that all abutting landowners in the past have been assessed for similar roads. Have there been instances where the city has paid for construction of new roads or taken property and then compensated through eminent domain or those types of routes? Or is the city always assessed abutting landowners for these types of projects? Was one question we would like the city to just address for us quickly. We also had a question about whether federal or state funds
Mr. Putnam?
Oh, please, go ahead.
If you don't mind, I think we could take those one at a time.
Sure, please.
It's up to,
please
I mean,
do.
it's up to you. I mean, if you want to list all 4, I can take them down.
It'll probably be easier if we go separately. I just wanted to make sure I'm making good use of your guys' time.
Okay, I was thinking the same thing. So for question number 1, Director Von Eyde, did you get that?
Yes, I did. Thank you for that pause there to respond there, Russ. We appreciate that. So yes, the system for development in Watertown works in a way that the developers pay as they go, if you will, as they anticipate. If you take this residential subdivision to the south here, as they're prepared to subdivide that land, to file plats that allows them to then pull building permits. There's a series of public infrastructure improvements that they have to carry out before they can get to that point. And they then are required to install the water, the sewer, the streets, the curb and gutter, and then subsequently the sidewalks as the homes continue to develop. So to the point of your question, the adjacent landowners or the landowners around here, my response to that would be absolutely yes, that each adjacent landowner has paid their share, if you will, as those areas have been developed. Now that could have been either directly the current landowner that exists today or indirectly through the developer that developed this land and then priced their land accordingly in order to accommodate for the public infrastructure that they put on that land. So in one way or another, each landowner has been and consistently is held accountable, if you will, to the subdivision regulations for the public improvements.
Great. I appreciate that. My second question, and this came from one of my fellow landowners, is there ever any federal or state funds that the city ever uses for these types of improvements?
Yes, the state allocates to each community in South Dakota a certain amount of funding based on our population. That comes through the South Dakota DOT. Those funds go into a bucket for general reconstruction and street maintenance costs that the city then utilizes. Those funds are specific to roadway projects that it either rehabbing, rehabilitating, or reconstructing existing roads. Once in a while they're used for brand new construction, but that's in a rare case where it would have to be like an arterial roadway or some other instance where there's a benefit to the community as a whole, not just simply a neighborhood benefit or regional neighborhood benefit like in this case. So short answer is, for projects like this, no, there aren't funds available that we would allocate for projects like this, but we do get a stipend from the DOT for rehabilitation and maintenance on our existing streets.
Yeah. One other question I had, I've got just 2 more for you guys quick. The next question our group had was, is there any drainage plan for this road? If there's a lot of rain or water buildup, is there a solution for that that's coming as part of the road construction?
Yeah, that's a good question. I just asked that to my assistant city engineer recently. I don't believe we're installing any new storm sewer, but we do have to look into, there may be need for some concrete valley gutter across the street in either at Mayfair or at North Park Street. But generally speaking, to your point, the surface runoff would be then accounted for according to the design of this subdivision and its surface conveyance of the stormwater as it was intended to be back when this subdivision was designed. Just looking for Justin, my assistant city engineer, for confirmation on that. He's nodding in agreement. So no, there's no additional storm sewer improvements, but might be some minor surface improvements with some valley gutter yet to be determined.
Great. Then the final question we have, this is something, Heath, we had spoken briefly about. We were asking if the city was willing to look into any solutions that would result in the assessment not resulting in a personal lien against the current property owners, as we're not developers. We had some questions about whether a lien would apply to the property and then the property owners, even though the property hasn't been annexed yet. I don't know if the city has been willing to look into those options so that we as non-developers don't have personal liens against us for an assessment that we really don't have any control over.
Yeah, and to that point, Russ, Lisa Carrico, the city attorney, has been researching that. I don't know as though she's been able to finalize any research, but I'll hand it over to her to talk to that point.
Thank you, Heath. Basically, it's all under the state statutes. So the state statutes basically require that the city finance office, after the assessment roll has been adopted, so basically not at this stage, but once the assessment roll has been adopted, that there, under the state statutes, there is a continuing lien until the assessment is paid. I can tell you that under the state statutes, I mean, it already acknowledges that it's a payment plan that the city can adopt for the payment of that assessment. So any lien per se that would show up on any background check or something of that nature would basically show that it was being paid appropriately, and that it wouldn't have a negative impact unless the property owners were not paying on an annual basis.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Putnam. Public hearing is still open. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item? I'll close the public hearing, open it up for council action. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution of a necessity? Motion made by Councilman Schutte, seconded by Councilman Bueller. Open it up for questions and comments. Is it Paulson? Sorry, Paulson. Councilman Schutte.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually have a few questions here. So the developer on the south, some of this we've already kind of covered, but just to set this up, the developer on the south, when that originally was worked through, the infrastructure, they were paying for that. They included the price of the infrastructure, you know, in the cost of their lots, and they recouped those. And there was a benefit for the developer in that process. Of course, leaving the north side of the road where we're at today, you know, I suppose in hopes that someday a developer would develop that. But there's not, as of right now, it looks like just farmland, you know, landowner with the farming operation. And it's challenging for me to see the abutting property to the north with getting no benefit from this, not being a developer, that would make them pay $250,000 for something that was done on the south side, where there was a benefit for the developer, the city benefits having that, you know, just of course with growth, and yet seeing a property owner just kind of by happen chance, they happen to be right there, and they happen to be now in a spot where they're going to get assessed the $250,000 bill for a street that they're not developing or receiving anything from that as a landowner, like the southern side did. So that's my quandary, I guess, if you will, as I'm working through this myself. I'm not how to answer that question. I'm just kind of stating my quandary, and I don't know how to work through that. So if anyone can enlighten me, that would be great.
We can leave it open, and I think Director Von Eye would like to address that.
Yeah, I could, at least the best I can from the logic of the assessments and the benefit of the adjoining land. Now, albeit that Russ and his group of landowners are not developing this land immediately or tomorrow or in the next 5 years for that matter, as far as we know of. But does the benefit still exist? And that's where the statutes allow the municipality to deem that, yes, a benefit does exist here to the tune of, or to the ability of being able to assess because of our subdivision regulations. So when that land does become annexed and wants to develop, if this road is not built, that would be step number one that would be required of them, is to build this road in order to make their land subdividable and developable, in order to meet our zoning ordinance and our subsequent subdivision regulations. So because we've built our ordinances around, like most all municipalities do, that progression of public improvement process, when you get to these outlier areas of town, are there areas of land that aren't receiving an immediate benefit? Absolutely, to your point, Councilman. There's no immediate benefit to that adjacent landowner, but there is subsequent benefit. And I would also lean to this Second Street Northwest, something very similar that was performed there several years ago, where the city constructed this road out through an area that was rural on both sides. There was no immediate benefit to either side. But of course, there's tremendous benefit now as the west side has developed, and will be continued appropriate and necessary benefit for this property on the east side of Second as well. And so that cost too was handled in a similar fashion, where the adjacent landowner was held accountable to pay for portions of that roadway later on as development occurred. And so I get the lens you're looking at it through, and it's a great question to ask. That's the best answer I have from the state statute, municipal's ability to assess public improvements. Short of having that option, the other option is the city pays for this, and then that begs the question to all the developers that have paid their way on why didn't we pay for their roads. So it's kind of that conundrum of there is not an immediate benefit, but there is definitely a future benefit.
Councilman Schutte, follow up.
So if they were to have a future, I guess that would help. If the city were to pay for it, then a future development, they don't have to recoup those costs in the sale of the lots and whatnot. But then again, what if they don't develop it and it just becomes stays farmland? There's not a benefit per se. So I guess that's the challenge as far as future development or not, or how long it stays farmland. I did like the idea of if there's a way to have that where they actually pay that out to whoever develops it, then incorporate that cost. But I guess obviously that's not possible through state law, is kind of how I understood it. So anyway, that's what I'm processing that. So thank you very much.
Councilman Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I do know this area well. Not only is it near my house, and I do travel this road occasionally. I actually, when I was in the engineering department, wrote a letter to the Putnam family, and I don't know if you received it or not. This is not a dig at not responding then or anything like that. It is, the city has seen this as an issue, a safety issue for a while now. It well preceded me in the engineering department. I followed up. So I'm glad to see it to this point. I do think that there is a safety issue with that being a half street up there. We do have an elementary school immediately adjacent to the east, not immediately, but adjacent to the east. And with the apartments further east, I do think that this is being a more used roadway than it has been in the past. So I do like the idea of this, and I do think that this is more appropriate than what happened on the 2nd Street, which was labeled as a cost recovery, but did not have council action at the time. And so I do like the idea of an assessment better than a cost recovery. For these, I do know, I understand what Councilman Schutte is definitely saying about there's no immediate benefit to these landowners, and there's definitely part of me that I'm torn, because cost recovery and an assessment is two options to go to get what you need to get done. But I do definitely have sympathy towards the landowner that they don't have any plans on developing, so what does it do for them? But as a general whole for the community and especially this area, finishing that roadway, not having half of it blacked off, and also providing some sidewalk is definitely a big benefit, and I think is a huge safety benefit overall. So I do want to say I do support this in the direction instead of going the other way where we label it as a cost recovery.
Go to City Manager Mack.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question, just so I'm understanding correctly. I think I have it right in my head. So we budgeted, the city budgeted for this project, to do this project. We are assessing the property to the north for their appropriate share of it. If it never annexes into the city, they don't ever pay that, correct? Like, they're not writing us a check
Correct.
tomorrow. So the likelihood that when it annexes into the city, it's going to remain undeveloped is pretty low. So while it's undeveloped, there is no cost to them. It's when they annex in to develop it. I just want to make sure I'm understanding that. Is that right?
Yeah, so that's a very good point to make, especially considering Councilman Shetty's question earlier as to the benefit. The assessment gets filed, but because this land is not annexed into the city, we cannot collect on that assessment until it is annexed. So presumably at that point in time in the future, when it is annexed, that's when it's going to want to be developed. And so now we've checked this box that this road is now built. We can collect the assessment money at that time. Very good point, Manager Mack.
I will allow a follow-up on that part, Councilman Shetty.
Being that's on the question that I had, I do appreciate that insight, because that does help my mindset now in process, thinking, well, they're paying this money for no benefit whatsoever, but it doesn't kick in until annexed in, which of course we know when something's annexed in, it's with the purpose of development. So that does answer, I guess, my question. Thank you.
Councilman Danforth.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, that was very good insight, because I was right with you, Councilman Shetty. I was right there wondering, all right, what if I don't have the funds to make this payment? But it's going to happen at a time when there is a plan for the property. What has prompted this? Is it just a general need because of the school? Because where I'm going to go with this, and I'll ask my second question and then look for a response, is we have talked for years and years and years about the half road up on 14th Avenue Northeast and the continuous problems that poses, the dissatisfaction on the part of those that live in the area, the difficulties that whole scenario creates for just our snow removal process and providing that service to that area of town. So my question, I guess, is with that is how does this one differ from a many years discussion regarding 14th Avenue Northeast? Is it purely a budget issue from the city's standpoint, or how do we get from that one that's been talked about for years to this one, which I don't disagree it needs to get done, but I'm not aware of it having been spoke about extensively over time. So, Heath, I'll give that after you.
Director Von Eye?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that question, Councilman Danforth. The logic here is, to your last point you made, yes, this is kind of what I'd call some of the low-hanging fruit, if you will. This stretch of roadway is much shorter than the piece up on 14th Avenue Northeast. Some other considerations on why it fell higher in the hierarchy of things in the pavement management is as we all know, 14th a couple years ago blew up on us one spring, and we had to repave the thing. So we contemplated at that time on reconstructing it to a full width street section. We just simply did not have the budget for it to take on that amount of capacity of street reconstruction in that year. So we opted to repave what was there, knowing that we could still build out the north half at a later date. So this roadway as well has some deterioration, the half that exists, to the point where it's needing some road work. And again, made this some low-hanging fruit. Not only do we need to build the north half, but we have to reconstruct some of the south half that exists now today because we've lost it due to deterioration over the years. The other factors that come into play, of course, you have 2nd Street West, which you could liken to 19th Street East, of course, that ties into 14th Avenue. But this is also a connecting point with that high-density development that just went in with the multi-apartment complexes around Highway 81, and then the elementary school, and then all the active development to the west of 2nd Street West. All those things kind of created this perfect storm of pointing at this as a low-hanging fruit to get this full section built and made good sense and get it done within a reasonable budgetary amount that we could handle in our CIP, our capital improvement plan.
Councilman Tupper, did you have something?
Typically on an assessment, let's say you take the 10-year assessment, isn't there like a 10% interest rate?
So upon implementation of our ability to collect on that assessment, yes, the adjacent landowner has up to 10 years to pay for that assessment. Of course, that would be implemented at the date we can start collecting, which is the date of annexation of this land.
So that interest wouldn't start until that day. That was my question.
Correct.
So, okay, thank you.
Correct.
Councilman Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mayor. That's essential what I was going to clarify too, that there is no interest provision that comes into play until we have the ability to actually assess it or start collecting it, which would be upon annexation then. Is that correct? So
Yes.
is that correct? First of all?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. I mean, this is a really good deal to the landowner because they're getting their cost fixed now, and they'll know what the amount's going to be at some point down the road. I mean, we as a city are actually take a little bit of a beating here because we're expending the dollars now and are going to collect future dollars for it. But don't get me wrong, I support this, but I want to clarify too what Councilman Tupper just asked.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments?
I don't know if I'm allowed to just state one more thing. It was mentioned numerous times. There's no payment due until annexation, and we're not disputing that at all. But as mentioned earlier, there is a lien that applies to us personally at the point of the assessment, whether it's payable or not. That lien will show up on records for us as landowners. So while there may be a benefit in the future, there is no benefit now to us. And there is going to be a lien that's going to apply to us personally, even though we don't have a choice in the improvement, and we receive no current benefit from the improvement. So I would just reiterate the idea of the lien. But that's all. I appreciate your guys' time.
City Attorney Carrico, did you want to address that at all?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I mean, unfortunately, under state statute, the assessment applies once you have approved the assessment roll, which would be that would be at the point of annexation is when the assessment roll would be approved? Or would you guys be approving it pre?
We were anticipating, and this is something we can explore too. What staff is anticipating is approving the assessment roll at the completion of the project, which is common and customary for an assessment. But if there are means to memorialize and file the assessment in a way that doesn't impact to the extent that Mr. Putnam has described, we're definitely willing to look into that. We have to work within the confines of the state statutes too, though, and take direction from our city attorney on those measures. So,
and I guess from a practical perspective, keep in mind that in an essence of credit reports and background reports, in essence, they're looking for a delinquency. So even if they were to look up the actual levy, it would basically state that it's not due until annexation, and it would also show whether they were making their payments on time.
Okay, I'll make one last call for questions and comments. Hearing none, the motion is to approve the resolution of necessity. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item E is a first reading of Ordinance 2309, an amendment to a section on off-street loading minimum requirements. Public Works Director Heath Von Eye, please take this one away.
Thank you, Mayor. This is kind of a housekeeping item in Chapter 21, the zoning ordinance, and related to loading docks, or otherwise known as, just what are we calling them here in the text? Sorry, I'm skimming as I'm talking. But it refers to the loading docks and how we prohibit them on the front yards for good reason in certain zoning districts. We don't want our commercial areas to be inundated with loading docks in their front yards that are on the side of yard, the part of the lot that abuts the street that they're facing. We've ran into issues with that. It creates aesthetic issues and concerns. However, in the industrial areas, there's a little bit less concern to that regard. So we've allowed for loading docks to be in the front yards in industrial zoned areas in the I-2 district, and historically prohibited them in the I-1. However, we amended that here a few years back in 2017, and we allowed them in the I-1. And then we did a comprehensive update of this section of Chapter 21 regarding off-street parking and loading areas, and inadvertently did not keep that exemption of I-1 being prohibited to have loading docks in the front yard. So this is just a housekeeping item to go back and clean that up. What this does then is allows all I-1 and I-2 districts the permission of building loading docks in their front yards.
Thank you very much. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the ordinance amendment. Oh, it's first reading. Sorry. Thank you. All right. We'll open it up for questions and comments then. Councilman Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I feel like this was a discussion just a few years ago, even in the industrial districts, of having it not included in the front of the building. I don't know if anyone recalls that, but why, I guess, is there a request for one now? Is that why this is being brought forward, or what's different now than the discussion previously?
Well, if I may, Mayor, the discussion a few years ago was, does it make sense that we allow them in I-2 and not I-1? And at that time we decided, no, that doesn't make sense. Let's go ahead and allow them in both industrial districts. And then inadvertently, when we did a comprehensive update of this section, we had the old language that prohibited the I-1 use, and now we're just going back and putting it back in. So we talked through it at that time some years back and decided, yeah, it makes sense to allow it in both. And then inadvertently that got cut out at some point. So we're putting it back in as an allowance for both.
Any further questions and comments? All right, we'll see this one back at next council session. Director Von Eye?
One quick thought I forgot to mention, the maneuvering and backing into these loading areas is always a requirement that be sustainable within the development site. We have other areas in town where that's not the case, and they have to use the roads to back into these areas. Our subdivision regulations require that all the maneuvering and backing into these loading docks is contained within the owner's site. So I just want to make that point of clarity.
And that's a good point, because I definitely get a lot of questions from the public about the places that are, for lack of a better term, grandfathered in and allow the turning of large trucks on the street and blocking. And that always causes some consternation among those who are caught in traffic. So, all right. Item F is an approval of resolution on the plat of Prairie Haven Second Edition to the Municipality of Watertown. Public Works Director Heath Von Eye. Please illuminate us on this one.
Absolutely. Pulling up a map here for reference. Prairie Haven subdivision is out on the west side of the airport, as you see on this map here, this vicinity map. It's adjacent to Golf Course Road. The developer has begun some of the public infrastructure improvements within this area. What's before the council tonight is simply the plat of this turquoise outlined land parcels of land. And that plat then, of course, creates all the formal lots and rights of way within that subdivision. The plat is in conformance with the preliminary plan for this area. So it's, if you defer back to our development process, that's one of the checkoffs that we make. It's been reviewed and recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. And I'll stand by for any comments, questions.
All right, thank you very much. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the plat. Motion made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Paulson. Open it up for questions and comments. Councilman Villauer?
Thank you, Mayor. I've had a question not pertaining to the plat itself, but as I look at the development agreement, and I've had, I drive that road several times every day. That's the ward I represent, and I've had a fair amount of people query me as far as what are the plans for the bike trail out there. I mean, that bike trail has been closed off for a section out there. I fully support this overall development, but that is a concern because that bike trail does get a lot of use, and I guess I just throw that out there. Maybe it's a rhetorical question, but I guess what are the plans for the bike trail out there?
Director Von Eyde, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, absolutely. We'd hold the developer accountable to repave that portion that was disturbed. And Justin can confirm this yet this week through staff, but my assumption is they're waiting on asphalt availability and their contractor availability to come back and reconstruct portions that were demoed or obstructed during their grading.
Follow up, Councilman?
So does that mean it will be redone here in the very near future then, or sometime this summer? Is that the timetable or the plan?
My expectation would be to push the developer to get it done yet this construction season. Now, exactly when would depend on the availability of their contractor and availability of asphalt. And
I guess I would just encourage, if at all possible, really let's try to get that done this summer would be my thoughts.
Councilman Tupper.
Just not to pick on this development, but I think the point that Councilman Villauer brings up, and I would really like to see us work a little bit, maybe more strict with developers that do have a tendency of ripping up a bike trail. We've seen some that are 2-3 years that have been tore up and not being able to be used, and not to pick on anybody in particular, but I would think that, somehow we got to set a timeline because this could go on forever, so.
Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the plat. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item G is an approval of a revocable right-of-way encroachment agreement with Lake Area Technical College for property located at 1201 Arrow Avenue. Public Works Director Heath Von Eyde, you're on the clock for this.
thank you. This is pretty straightforward. Right-of-way encroachment agreements are by ordinance required to come before the council. This one in particular is a pretty hefty one, if you will, based on the improvements that are being performed. This relates to Lake Area Technical College and their expansion, and of course the Sky Bridge that will be crossing Arrow Avenue. We've had preliminary design reviews and preliminary approvals ahead of this action item. This is just simply a formality of us memorializing that the city has approved this archway be built within our right-of-way. And then it outlines some pretty common sense measures for the maintenance and repair or condition of that archway. Obviously don't want it to become a traffic hazard or things of that nature. So there's some language in this right-of-way encroachment agreement to that effect. And so otherwise, again, pretty straightforward. Staff recommends it for approval. Given the extent of other design approvals and construction approvals that have already ensued prior to this. We do have representation from the college here this evening if there's any direct questions for them, but we'd otherwise stand by for questions or comments.
I was actually going to give Lake Area Technical College President Tiffany Sanderson a chance to speak because I think that the council is all aware of this project, but the city at large might not know exactly what's going on. So I think that provided this opportunity, it would be a good chance for illumination.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. Tiffany Sanderson, president at Lake Area Technical College, and appreciate the opportunity to work with the city to have this agreement and our expectations clearly in place before the archway is constructed and the building is open for our students and staff's use and the public's use of Arrow Avenue underneath of the archway. The building that we're talking about is a 58,000 square foot building that will span from north to south across Arrow Avenue and will house our business and finance programs, advanced manufacturing, and then a whole host, over a dozen general classrooms to accommodate our growing campus and the needs that we have for education across several programs. And so this archway project is obviously a very cool feature to campus, but it'll certainly help us address our capacity needs and flow of campus activities, especially through the winter months and inclement weather. So I'll stand by for any questions, but appreciate the opportunity to work with the city and have this in place before anything becomes an issue. And I will say, as you know from experience being on campus, our facilities are in excellent condition, and we plan for the archway to be held in excellent condition as well. But if there are any issues, this agreement outlines how we'll address those in tandem with the city.
All right, thank you, President Sanderson. If you want to just stand by in case anyone has a question. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the encroachment agreement. Motion made by Councilman Villauer, seconded by Councilman Shetty. Open it up for questions and comments. Councilman Villauer.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to clarify one thing. As I look at the plat map, it says vacated Arrow Avenue. We are not vacating Arrow Avenue, correct?
That is correct, and I had the exact same question when I read that legal description. What that's referring to is the southern portion of the lake area property is referred to as a portion of vacated Arrow Avenue,
Okay.
where Arrow Avenue used to exist some years back. So that just happens to be the part of their legal description of the land that they own, nothing to do with the right-of-way that we're retaining throughout Arrow Avenue.
So I think just want the public to know that no, we are not closing off Arrow Avenue. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilman Danforth.
President Sanderson, now you moved here from Pier, correct?
I
So
did.
you're familiar in Pier with the dreaded train
bridge.
trestle that everybody hits. I'm assuming this won't happen here, is that correct?
That is my hope. This is not an area of town that's quite the thoroughfare that Pierce Street is.
All right, so a little tongue-in-cheek there, but
For anyone wondering, there is like I think an Instagram account called Bridge versus Truck following Pier, and it's actually quite amusing. Councilman Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have had a couple inquiries as to when Arrow Avenue will be open, and I have passed along that request to Manager Mack here. But can you provide us any update?
You bet. So the building under construction is slated to be open about this time next year. And I don't, Councilman, have a specific date in terms of when Arrow Avenue will be open. Depending on how things come together, there's a possibility that it may open before the building's internal features are completely finished. But the building at large, we plan to have open and fully available for use on campus by fall of '24.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Councilman Tupper?
I just got one that can actually, if we can get Ms. Sanderson to wait until after the vote, I just got a question about Lake Area Tech and Cole College.
Sure, you can do it now if you want.
To do it now? Okay. Did I hear it right that Lake Area had the third largest secondary education graduating class in the state, only behind USD and SDSU?
On Friday, we had about 900 students graduate, about 650 walked through the graduation ceremony, and that 900 graduates is the third largest undergraduate graduation in the state, behind, you're correct, sir, SDSU and USD.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. I'll just say, Councilman Shetty?
Just a fun fact, my son, he was in that graduation ceremony this year, so it was just as a proud father, I get that little shout out.
Well, and
So was my sister.
we all know that LATC is a boon to Watertown culturally and economically. I will say, just judging by how packed all of the restaurants were on Friday night and Saturday, thank you for bringing in a lot of money to Watertown.
We appreciate the partnership.
Yes. With that said, the motion is to approve the encroachment agreement. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item H is an approval of a bid award for a 2024 Spartan fire truck. City Manager Mack, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. What you have in front of you is a bid award for a 2024 fire truck. This particular item is slated for the 2024 CIP. However, we've come to you before and asked, I think, with an ambulance, perhaps a police vehicle, given the length of time that is now required for ordering and in order to mitigate any price increases after January 1. We are asking for approval to award this. Chief Rowland has mentioned to me that once we approve the bid award, it will take about 16 months for them to build and deliver the apparatus to us. So we would be recommending that you move this up to 2023 and we get moving on getting it built. And Chief Rowland and Assistant Chief Youngblood are here, and we will stand by for any questions.
Chief Rowland, Assistant Chief Youngblood, would you like to add anything before we take it?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Helene and Manager Mack and members of council. And thank you for the consideration of this approval tonight. As you can see, the bid award, the bid that came in from Sourcewell through Spartan, it's a company out of Brandon, South Dakota. We've gotten numerous fire trucks for these folks for many years. Engine 3 and Engine 4, respectively, are very similar to the truck this one's going to be. My co-partner here, Assistant Chief Youngblood, and his apparatus spec team have been working on this project for over a year. They vetted this out and researched it at a very high, detailed level with fire truck companies across the region. And one thing that's very specific, I think the chassis alone is about 150 pages, and the body of the truck is about 200 plus pages. So it's very detailed, it's high level, and it's very technologically sound. Scott and his team did a nice job with identifying things that we could save off the truck. And as you can see here, the bid tab specifically states that the cost of the truck through Sourcewell is $742,295. We are going to eliminate one of the trucks. It's a structure pumper, which will get a credit of $20,000. Another truck, it's a rescue truck. I'll show a picture of it here in a second. We'll get about a credit of $5,000, and then we have some equipment on board. The truck actually comes with about $200,000+ worth of equipment. A lot of you folks that were in the ops know exactly what that will look like. But Scott and his team were able to take some of those pieces of equipment off of Rescue 51 and Engine 1 respectively and use those pieces so we don't have to use all those dollars. And we do have $799,500 in the actual budget. Here's just a Sourcewell buying contract bid that was given to us here last couple weeks ago. Next attachment here is the long-term capital outlay. And just briefly here, I just wanted to show you here. This is, I wish I could get the mouse on here. If you look on the proposed budget spending on the expenditure line item for rescue pumper, right there is the money that we have allocated for 2024. And the money that's identified for the rescue pumper for 2025 is a smaller truck. We identified $222,000 back about 2 years ago. Unfortunately, that number has escalated all the way to $300,000+ due to the commercial chassis that are out there that are very hard to get, aren't they, Randy? Mm-hmm. So we want to move on to the next one. And just the last page here just kind of identifies what the truck's going to look like. This is what the truck will look like. It's very similar to Engine 3 and Engine 4 respectively right now. Will be just a little bit smaller. All the rescue truck equipment will be up in front of the bumper area, and this will also be a combination truck that will identify fire suppression as well as accidents and truck accidents. The two trucks that we're going to replace are Rescue 51 here and Engine 1. Those two trucks, the first one is specifically for car accidents and truck accidents, hazmat spills. That's the truck that we identified for 2025 to be replaced. It's 2007 Ford. It does come with some turbo issues right now, and that's why we need to probably get rid of it sooner than later. And the truck down below is it's a smaller structure pumper, but it does not have the ability to go out onto truck or car accidents. That truck will be the one that we will receive a $20,000 credit for when we sell, and that's being conservative. I think we might even get just a little bit more than that, and the truck above that will be about $5,000. So we will be deleting these two from our fleet, so we will have 3 trucks that are very similar. It's all combination rescue pumpers, It'll be engine 1, 3, and 4 respectively, as well as our ladder truck. Scott is here also from the technical side. Like I told you, he's done all the homework and vetted out and researched this information in quite detail. So we'll stand by for any questions.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the bid award.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Paulson. Well, Colin was giving me he was very, very quiet, but Councilman Tupper?
What's your confidence level on this price being, or is this locked in price, guaranteed price?
I'll let Scott take that. He's been working with the Sourcewell.
This is the guaranteed price for delivery in the 14 to 16 months as of today.
Thank you.
Any further questions, comments? All right, the motion is to approve the bid award. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We are on to item D from the consent agenda. Authorization for the city to declare the showmobile as surplus and advertise for sealed bids. City Manager Mack will explain what's going on behind this one.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a recommendation that comes to us from our Park and Rec Director as well as the Park Board. They met either last month or the month before and are recommending to declare surplus the showmobile. We purchased the showmobile brand new in 2004, so it's coming up on 20 years old. With the creation and opening of the Foundation Plaza, we believed that it was more appropriate to utilize the existing stage than to continue to cart around a 20-year-old mobile unit that was on or is on a replacement schedule. So when the department submitted their request for the 2023 budget, Park and Rec did request about $250,000 to replace the existing showmobile. And at that time, we had discussions that it probably wasn't appropriate to replace it, that with the new park for city functions, that would be more appropriate. So some facts and figures about the showmobile. Throughout the summer, there are other times in the year that it does get utilized, but mostly in the summer, there are 17 city-sponsored events, roughly, meaning that they are put on by a city entity, and there's about 30 private events. The private events include Thursday Night Live. It takes about 27 hours per week of staff time to move and set it up and take it down and haul it away. Excuse me. The rate for rental, I can pull it up, it's about $350 if you're a non-city entity, and we currently do not charge the chamber for their usage of the showmobile for Thursday Night Live. So factoring all of that in, the considerable staff time that it takes to haul it, set it up, take it down, haul it back, we felt we've used it to the best of its useful life, and now we'd like to transition on to utilizing our Foundation Plaza stage. Dusty and Matt Bransrud are here and can help answer any additional questions you might have.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to authorize the declaration and advertise bids. Motion made by Councilman Bueller. Second by Councilman Vilhauer. Open it up for questions and comments. Councilman Tupper.
So the other places that use it, I mean, I know like they use it out at City Park a couple times a year, like cooking on Compeskin, things like that. Is there a backup plan for something like that? What could be used?
City Manager Mack.
So the events that are booked would transfer over to whomever the new owner is. So it'd be a sort of a guaranteed revenue for the new owner. And we do believe there's interest. We've had a couple of local individuals reach out with wanting to purchase it and wanting to know what the process is.
Okay, that would answer my question. Thank you.
Councilman Danforth.
But there's no assurances of that, correct? I mean,
City Manager Mack.
Assurances that
I think that whoever buys it would fulfill the obligations of what has already been booked, correct?
Dusty or Matt can answer that.
Or ongoing, yeah.
Yeah, in the future, I can't speak to that, but I do think there's a plan for currently booked events.
If I may, Mayor, Randy, it's the same question as you got, and that's mine, is, if we don't need it, we don't need it, but, the current stage that will be uptown here is pretty stationary, hard to move that. This thing has been used in a number of different parks and a number of different things, from the stadium to other parks to cooking on Compesca to, you can go on and over the years. And those are things that we have helped support. And so I question, those are things that bring activities to our community, bring money to our community, and I question if there's enough value in the recovery of this from selling it that would offset the value it brings to those events that are done and that do utilize this thing.
I will start with the
question first.
The initial question: is there any guarantee of that? No, but the city does reserve the right to reject any and all bids. So, if, for instance, a buyer came from out of town, we would have the ability to reject those bids if we deem we want to keep that piece of equipment in town. Just looking at our operation, we are looking, we're actually subcontracting or contracting certain services, mowing and things like that. Our hope was that this would stay in town. It could still be used for some of those different events that you mentioned. But in the long run, even if we are renting the showmobile itself, in the long run, we felt it was going to be more efficient for that to be privatized as opposed to city operated.
Councilman Schutte.
Thank you, Mayor. And I do understand the process and time of staff and that it takes up. It's been a great service for the community of Watertown. I myself have used it for some of access ministry as well, but that's one of my concerns is too. It's been a good asset for the community, but obviously behind the scenes there's been some talks about who may purchase it, that may utilize it for private enterprise and within Watertown. So I think it makes sense. However, my concerns are, for example, at the beginning of the year in January is when you can reserve it for sometime throughout that calendar year. And so how would that play out for those who have reserved it for this calendar year? I guess that's one of my questions.
Again, we would visit with, assuming that someone locally agreed to purchase it, in the language of the sealed bid, we can put something like that. Actually, we've added the language that the city does reserve the right to reject bids. So we could negotiate with the highest bidder at that point. And as a part of those negotiations, ask them to honor the existing rentals. If they chose not to, then we would have the right to reserve or reject that bid.
Just out of integrity on that point right there, just to honor what we've established with community members, most likely throughout for this calendar year, it'd be wise for us to honor those if it's done through the contract with the sealed bids. I guess I'd appreciate that. But then also, hopefully this works out, because I understand from the Parks and Rec Department side that it's time consuming, and if we could privatize it out, that'd be great. So. All right, thank you.
Councilman Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. From the sounds of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, it really is a burden on city staff. Not only is it late at night a lot of times, or moving at early mornings, by the sounds of it, we're not making our money back off this thing in the long term. Is that correct?
We are not. Annually, we're realizing maybe $4,300 worth of revenue, and Staff did some calculations, and our cost to operate during that time for those is roughly $5,300 to $5,500 annually. So we're losing roughly $1,200 a year. Again, I understand the service we're providing. Parks loses money everywhere you turn around, but just looking at this, the other part of this is just the time that is dedicated to that. We have a limited resource in our park maintenance division, and that 27 hours a week is not being spent maintaining parks, dragging ball fields, the general maintenance. So we just thought this would be an opportunity to, allow private enterprise to step in.
And I appreciate you saying that, because a lot of the talks we talk about, not just Parks and Rec, not just engineering, but we want to gain efficiencies. And I do think that this is going to help gain efficiency in the long term. And I definitely understand where other council members are coming from, but I definitely support this, just getting rid of it for our staff, but hopefully keeping it in town and a private enterprise takes it over and honors these long-term commitments.
Councilman Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess really nothing to a whole lot more to add. I guess I'll admit when I first saw this, I really had my doubts too. But I guess I trust what you're saying, Superintendent Roddick. I had no idea it took that much time on the part of staff to work with this. And I'm assuming that thing needs a certain amount of maintenance, even if it just sets around and takes up space as well.
It does.
So I guess I trust the staff and the park board in their recommendation coming forward with this, and hopefully someone else can take it over and put it to use and continue to serve us. And if not, I guess we'll go on from there. But I support this as well.
Councilman Tupper.
This question is more for City Attorney Carrico. It's just more for my peace of mind. When we reserve right to refuse any or all bids, can we do that on the grounds of somebody from a different location? Is that legal?
We're allowed to give state and local preference, so that's what I would use to reject that.
Thank you. That gives me a little peace of mind there. So,
City Manager Mack, you had something to say?
No, it's
okay. I have a question for either City Manager or Superintendent Roddick. Question would be, have we set the price point for any individual or private entity that would like to rent the band shell at the Foundation Plaza?
As a part of the band shell, yes, $100.
So now I'm on to my commentary, which is we have a much nicer stage that someone can rent for less than what we're charging for the showmobile, and this is at a nicer facility, and it would also work very well for the public, anyone who would want a showmobile type thing. Now, it doesn't work if you're taking it out to Compesca, obviously. That's a different situation, but just for a lot of events in and around town, the entity that would like to rent it, unless it is site specific, could just go to the Foundation Plaza, which is again why the city built that.
And we have had some interest from those type of groups to use the new park.
All right. Any further questions or comments? The motion is to authorize the declaration and advertise for bids. I will do a roll call vote on this one. City Manager Mack, would you like to call the roll?
Bueller. Yes. Danforth.
Yes.
Holeen.
Yes.
Paulson. Shuddy.
Yes.
Tupper.
Yes.
Vilhauer.
Yes.
Motion carried. We're on to old business. Is there any old business? Councilman Bueller.
If I might, thank you. This kind of reminded me of earlier in our meeting tonight, we were talking about bike trails and such, and I guess this would probably go to Public Works, our Public Works Director, in regards to the bike trail connection at Willow Creek, over by the development for the hockey arena. Where are we with that? I mean, that's been lagging out there for a long time, and I have constituents, that I hear from quite often about that.
Yes. So that component is part of their development agreement obligations. I don't know if that phase is still active. I'm looking at staff here for reference, but it is still active. So as we talked before, we've been pressing the contractor to get that rebuilt as soon as possible. It is under the confines of their development agreement that gives them 2 years to do that. They've tried to maintain temporary surfacing that we've had to keep up with them on in that capacity. But we're hoping to get it paved in this summer. The expiration of that development agreement, Brandy, is around September of this year. So per the development agreement, that would have to be complete by September of this year.
Okay, yeah, it'd be nice to put a stake in the ground. I know almost was a stake in the ground on that section one day because I rode through the current state of that trail up to Willow Creek. So, but I do get a number of folks that are asking when that'll be completed.
Certainly.
So, now that people are going out and ride their bikes more, that's more important. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Councilman Tupper.
That was kind of to my point earlier is sometimes, and I know sometimes it can't be helped because of ongoing construction, but we also got a large section out by Compesca Lodge that's been taken out for quite some time, and that's why I say I think, we got to devise a plan to say in that development agreement this section can be taken out, but it has to be replaced by whether it's 1 year or whatever, because some of this stuff can linger on for quite a while. So,
Councilman Paulson.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm just going to say it's not as easy as tearing something out and putting it back in a lot of times. Obviously, being involved with some of these, there's underground utilities that you're dealing with that need to be installed. There's asphalt contractors that you need to schedule. That sometimes gets very difficult because they won't just come for a bike path, I promise you, or not very often. They want a bigger job, and they will prioritize larger jobs over a small job. And I'm not saying that we haven't, maybe pushed hard enough, but I just want to point out that I know several owners of these, including who I work for, and we do try our best, but there are other underlying factors. And for example, I know out by the campground on Compesca, they're waiting to install dewatering so they can install sanitary sewer. So that's one thing there. Out by the lakes, there's some grading to be done, but also we were not able to get asphalt last fall. So, there's factors that play into this, and I understand the frustrations, but it's not just tear it out and put it back in a lot of times.
Thank you. Any further old business? Any new business? Any liaison member reports? Any announcements? City Manager Mack?
Thank you, Mayor. A reminder that we do have a work session scheduled for this coming Monday at 3:30 p.m. We actually will have a special council meeting first. There are a couple of items that require your attention before the next council meeting. One will be a discussion on adding to the mill and overlay budget to deal with a couple of particularly thorny areas in town that did not fare well after this winter. So our Public Works staff has been working diligently on that. We also have some potential land swap decisions to be made. And then we'll go into the work session that we were supposed to have last week that was canceled, 3:30 on Monday. And then Public Works Week is kicking off on Saturday with a Touch a Truck event out at the airport. There's a whole litany of activities happening throughout the week. So they've been advertising. It's on the website, on the city's Facebook page. But one big one, they're all big, they're all important. But one very exciting one is the ribbon cutting for Foundation Plaza, which will be at 11:30 on Thursday, the 25th. Excuse me, with a light lunch provided by the Community Foundation, and it'll be a great celebration of a really wonderful community project.
Councilman Schutte.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank the staff and the just the entire city for their support with my father's passing this last week. It was about a 6-week process that I was gone most of the time. I came for those couple council meetings, but just the support within City Hall and even others in the staff around the community, and even flowers that were sent from behalf of the city. Just when you're going through something like that, it really does mean something when people support you through that. So I just wanted to thank everybody who was just walked with me through that process. So thank you.
Councilman Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mayor. Just put a plug in for the chamber, the candidate forum for upcoming council and school board election, May 30th, 6 o'clock, Tuesday night, May 30th, 6 o'clock at E.D. Miller.
Councilman Paulson.
Just a reminder too, there is a Go Blue parade on Friday at 4 p.m.
I was just about ready to say that, so. All right, a lot going on here, and I know school is ending this week, I think. So, hope Watertown enjoys the summer. Is there any other announcements? We have no reason to go into executive session, therefore the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Beeler. Any conversation on that? Hearing none, the motion is to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries.